This video was brought to you by Brilliant. Here in the UK, every 10 years we conduct a census. This tradition dates back to the infamous Domesday Book, which was commissioned in 1086 by William the Conqueror in order to record the annual value of property. This was to try and estimate taxation rates. Although a number of different censuses took place in the years since, it wasn't until the Census Act was passed in 1800 that a regular national census started taking place every 10 years. Starting in 1801, a census has taken place every 10 years, with the only exception being 1941. We'll leave you clever people to figure out why this may not have taken place. Anyway, the maths geniuses amongst you may have noticed that last year, 2021, was a census year. As it takes a little time for the Office for National Statistics to compile the data from it, they're releasing the data in batches. However, the first batch was released this week, and it's, well, pretty interesting. So let's have a look through it. The first batch of data has three important sections: ethnic group, national identity, language and religion, demography and migration, and UK Armed Forces veterans. In a classic TLDR style, we're going to break this video down into three sections, going through each of them in turn. Let's start by going through the most talked about part of the data so far, the data on ethnic groups, national identity, language and religion. On national identity, fewer people say that they identified as being from a UK national identity than they did in 2011, the time of the last census. This is down roughly 2%. The big finding here is that those who identified as English has dropped by a gargantuan 42 percentage points, from 57.7% in 2011 to a mere 14.9% in 2021. Now, the ONS has pointed out that a big part of this change can be explained by the fact that British was put as the first possible option, so we can only take a limited amount from this statistic. There's also been a big shift in non-UK nationalities. Romanian, for example, has jumped from the 15th national identity in 2011 to 2nd in 2021, and Spanish has jumped from 16th to 8th. Irish has moved down from 2nd to 4th. There were also some big shifts in relation to ethnicity too. The number of people who identified themselves as a high-level category of white decreased from 86% to 81.7%. Now, we should say here that this statistic has been misinterpreted by some of the more reactionary right-wing commentators online, who have claimed that certain British cities, including London, are now minority white. London is, indeed, 37% white British. However, it's not minority white. London is 53% white. In fact, the ONS even note themselves that the largest percentage point increase was seen in the number of people identifying through the white, other white category. There were also some pretty big changes in the numbers of other ethnicities. The other largest change was in, well, the other ethnic group category, with this rising from 0.6% to 1.6%. Another big rise was in the number of people identifying as African. This went up from 1.8% in 2011 to 2.5% last year. Anyway, another well-reported finding from the census was the change in religion. The big finding here was that for the first time ever in a census, less than half the population described themselves as Christian, in what has been a 13.1% decrease in only 10 years. The UK is now a minority Christian country. There was a huge 12-point decrease in those who say that they do not follow any religion. A 1.6% increase was seen in those identifying as Muslim, alongside a 0.2% increase in those who identify as Hindu. Clearly, this demonstrates that the UK is swiftly becoming a more diverse country, and that Christianity is swiftly losing its dominance. Anyway, there are some more signs that Britain's becoming more diverse when we look at the second section of the ONS data release on demography. Anyway, let's start this section though by looking at the basic changes in things like population and households. The ONS found that, in 2021, the population of England and Wales was about 59.6 million, which is the largest population ever recorded. This was a growth of 3.5 million, or about 6.3%, since the last census back in 2011. Corresponding to this, there were about 1.4 million more households since 2011 too, which was a 6.1% increase. Sticking on the topic of households, there were some developments here too, notably in terms of deprivation. In essence, the ONS categorises deprivation as at least one member of a household meeting one of 4 criteria: being unemployed, having few GCSEs, having bad health, or living in overcrowded accommodation. The census revealed that 51.7% of households in England and Wales were deprived. Although this sounds ridiculously high, this is actually down from 2011, when 57.6% of households were deprived. The most deprived area of England and Wales is the North East, and the least deprived is the South East. The census results then move on to discuss marriage status. One of the big changes with this is that in 2014, gay marriage became legal in the UK, and opposite-sex civil partnerships became legal in 2019. The largest group in the most recent census is still people in a marriage or civil partnership, and while this has increased numerically since 2011, from 21.3 million to 21.7 million, this is decreased as a percentage of the population from 46.8% to 44.6%. As we mentioned, this is the first census in which we can observe how many homosexual marriages have taken place. There are currently 134,000 individuals in this kind of marriage, which makes up only 0.6% of individuals in marriages. There are additionally 67,000 homosexuals in civil partnerships still. So that was some of the more interesting points from the demography of England and Wales from the census. So let's move on to the last part of the ONS data, the changes in those who have worked for the armed forces. There are currently 1.85 million people who reported that they had previously worked for the armed forces who live in the UK, and the local authorities with the highest proportion of veterans were Gosport, North Kesteven and Richmondshire in England, and Conwy in Wales. However, there just wasn't that much data released by the ONS on veterans, but we have run you through the more interesting bits. If you want to read anything more about this section, or any other section of the census data released so far, we've linked it in the description. Anyway, in conclusion, the census data released so far demonstrates that Britain is a country that is changing very quickly. The population is getting larger, and with this, groups that were previously dominant are shrinking. Britain is becoming more multicultural, with smaller ethnicities, nationalities and religions growing in size. We'll have to wait until 2031 though to see whether this trend continues.
Now, what you want me to tell you here is that everyone knows what they're doing and is making rational decisions. But unfortunately, that's not always the case when it comes to politics. But it can be in your life if you sign up to Brilliant, the STEM learning platform where you can learn everything from quantum computing or algebra to logical decision making, a skill severely lacking in the world at the moment. Now, their logical thinking course might start simple, but it builds, teaching you logical reasoning skills until you're solving problems that previously seemed impossible. And it's the perfect time of year to invest in yourself too. With us heading into a new year, why not improve yourself and keep traveling on a journey of lifelong learning? And you'll get hooked on that empowering feeling of learning too, because this isn't just about memorization or lectures. Brilliant teaches you by doing, using active learning techniques to teach you the principles behind otherwise complex subjects, and ensuring that you actually understand what's going on. And it's not just traditional STEM topics either. There's some incredibly unique and fun stuff on there too, like courses from YouTubers, such as Kurzgesagt on nearby supernova, supervolcanoes, and the limits of humanity, or the brand new course from our Nebula friends at Real Engineering. Anyway, if you want to learn more in a fun way, then you should sign up to Brilliant, and the link in the description will get you 20% off an annual premium subscription, which is not only a great deal, but also supports the channel. So, thank you.